Well, good morning and welcome to a very special episode of Morning Java with our friend Rick Seaback from WQED, the living legend.
Yeah, well, we are at WQED.
We are at WQED. He'll at least agree with that much. Why don't you explain why we're at WQED?
Well, there's this thing coming up where WQED and DK Pittsburgh Sports are going to try something new and unusual, and it's going to give you access a little bit to both of us. Mm-hmm. And you've been nice enough to donate a year's subscription for a lot of people, anybody who, comes aboard with us, and they're going to get 2 of my shows to download, and, we're still working on it. It's coming soon. You're going to want to know about it, especially if somebody is like going to college.
Yeah, it's like it's a Pittsburgh care package, if you will. Like, here's your way to survive.
Yeah, but
if you're coming in or leaving.
Mm-hmm. Like everybody's getting their news off the internet now, so you're going to get your sports news off DK Pittsburgh Sports, and we hope it's fun at the same time.
It's funny. When people leave Pittsburgh, they never really leave, do they?
No.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Well, I've gotten to do some things with PBS where we travel the country. Inevitably, I don't think we've ever been to any place where somebody didn't come up and say, hey, aren't you guys from Pittsburgh? And that kind of thing. So it's always gratifying because I guess, in the 80s when so many people left town. And I know from when we used to get ratings and things, that we always got great ratings in San Diego.
Yeah, what about that? Yeah, we've had some of our bigger subscriber meetups in San Diego. Well, there's a lot of military out there in that part of the world. Everywhere you go. Rick, one of the funny things, I actually end up rolling my eyes at this, is we go around the country. You hear in sports terminology, people will see a stadium full of Steelers fans or Penguins fans in an arena somewhere, and they'll say, "Whoa, Pittsburghers really travel well." They didn't travel; they've been here all along. They got here in 1982, pal. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, and but it's always good, and I think everybody's aware of the whole phenomenon of the Pittsburgh Sports Bar.
Oh yeah.
When we're traveling around, we inevitably end up at one of those.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yes.
I'm not sure if anyone can consider themselves to be a true Pittsburgher, whether you're still in Pittsburgh or outside the city, unless you have this man's work. I've collected it all, actually a long time ago, first on VHS, and then we had to replace the entire catalog on DVD. When my wife came from Romania, we would actually watch these things together so that she could become a little bit more familiar with. You must hear stories like this all the time.
Yeah, but it's really, it's obviously gratifying, and I especially like it when people say their kids like them.
Yeah.
And what it is, I say, early on, I said, what this job is? I get to find out if all these stories my parents told me are true, and then, figure things out. And actually, my parents end up, my dad is in the Pennsylvania Roadshow, and my mom is in North Side Story. So, I owe them a lot. They were both from Hazelwood, and, they taught us so much about Pittsburgh, and I moved away for 16 years. When I came back, I had a totally different set of eyes, and I just thought, this city is more interesting, and the history of this place is just so incredible. We forget that as the 19th century became the 20th century, we were one of the most important places on Earth.
On Earth.
Oil had just been first pumped from the ground in
one
Titusville.
Of the wealthiest cities in the world.
All that wealth came through, and all the robber barons, Carnegie and Frick and all those guys, all here. They all go to New York eventually, but there's so much happening in Pittsburgh, and I just thought, I want to learn this, and I want to find out what really is the truth if I can, and all of that. And I still, that's the best thing about my job, is that the surprises are continual, and and I get to write a column for Pittsburgh Magazine too, and they want me to write about famous visitors. So that's something I usually don't cover in my shows, and I love that. I love learning, and I'm working right now about Mike Seat, who's the brother of Minette Seat, who works here.
Yep.
He was reading an article in the New Yorker, and he told Minette about it, and she said, "Oh, Rick will want to know that because a famous visitor to Pittsburgh, Emmanuel Macron, came to Pittsburgh before he became president of France. He was trying to see how people live in other countries, and he spent time in Sewickley."
He didn't come for the breaded oysters?
Who knows what? The only thing that's mentioned in the New Yorker article is a Mexican restaurant, which I found out was Mad Mex, where he overindulged in a big spoonful of hot sauce.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I've made a mistake."
Our gift to France. Sports are so much a part of who we are, aren't they? It's incredible. If you're in a place, I'll say this, a really lame place like a Phoenix, okay, where nobody cares about anything. Like there's no sense of identity. There's no root. Even when they go to their games, Rick, whether it's the Cardinals or the Coyotes or whatever it is, it's like they're just there, you know? Here, it's like, it's religion.
Yes, yeah.
Where does that come from? What are we?
I know you'll hear that sometimes on sports things about, like, I think Jacksonville, no connection to the team.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're like not real people. You know, when you're a Pittsburgher, that's how you look at them.
Right. No, the fanaticism, the fans.
Yep.
It's reassuring. I think it's a really good thing, and you know that the way that success on any of our teams lifts the whole city. I love that. It's like it's. You know, people will say, "Are you a big Steeler fan?" I said, "Well, how can you live here and not be a
one?"
Steeler fan?
Right.
You know, it's just part of being here, and you know, I do love it, and you know, we forget how integral that is to everything.
See, you mentioned earlier in this program the out migration that happened in the early '80s, late '70s, early '80s. I've maybe gone a little bit too far in this assessment, but I've written in the past that I feel that to an extent Chuck Noll saved this city.
Oh.
Think about this, because the Steelers were the Pirates were also very good in the '70s. Easy to forget now, but the Steelers lifted up a city that was like, we had an out migration that compared to Chernobyl, for crying out loud. And we had pride in that one thing, and then we had a mayor who was very proactive and then worked with the community to build the skyscrapers and Renaissance 2 and everything. And I just thought that all started with the Steelers and why we cling to them in particular so much.
Right. I mean, we just got a new roller coaster named the Steel Curtain.
Only here, man. Only here. Only here.
Right. No, and it's a good thing. It's I don't know. It's the fabric of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's who we are, like all the way down.